better you're gonna get at it. And you don't always need to set aside, let's say, an hour, but if it's an important talk, maybe that's worth it. Maybe it's worth to go down to the department, call the manager, get the talk, send out the survey, really do your research. If it's just like a quick briefing, maybe it's worth thinking about, oh, where they're at emotionally. Oh, they just got bad news or good news, whatever it is. So usually, you know, the better you get and the more important it is, the more important it is, the more time you spend. So, but a good idea, sit down, spend a few minutes. And often it's a good idea, you know, bring a colleague. Because sometimes, just discussing these thoughts come up in our mind. So you can do that. But anyway, let's move on to the 5S. I'm going to give you a little bit of theory, how you can build your talk. And what I want to show you is that when you go home, you can see this works. This is at least my hypothesis and my belief that this does work for pretty much any talk. And then you get to present. We'll have fun up here, we'll lift you up, you'll get positive feedback, and we'll enjoy it. Because active learning is the best, of course. You know, me talking is not gonna help you that much, but it's only through doing. So, let's have a look at it. I've developed the 5S speech system that I'm very proud of, that I've spent hours at home crafting so I could have every single word start with an S. Right, are you ready for it? Good. So the very first S you want to start with is, let me write it here. Start. Of course, you want to start with start. Right. So what are good ways to start? Often I see people having the boring agenda slide. And we're like, okay, when are we ready to move on? Nothing wrong if you present it in a compelling, interesting way, but talking about all your accolades, how amazing you are, is probably gonna bore your audience to sleep. Now, if you do need to say a little bit about yourself, go ahead, but make it brief, you know, and share something. You can say, oh, my name is Asger, let me know I've been in this industry, and I love it. It's the most fun thing. Today I have something really special for you that I believe, and then you transition into your talk. If you do spend a few, 2-3 phrases about yourself, you can do it that way, but you could also just start with the start and go to the meat, what's important for the audience, the value they need. There's a good chance you will have been introduced, or they'll have seen your name on the paper before, on the website, or good small talk with them. Don't waste a lot of time talking about yourself, unless that is really of value to the audience. I've never seen a TED Talk where they start sharing their own name first and all that stuff, right? So, what could be good ways to start? Anybody has a suggestion? I could mention a bunch of different ways, but I would love to hear from you. Sean?
A hook.
A hook, yeah. What do you mean by a hook?
Either a hook of provocation.
Yes.
A hook, like you say, something which keeps them in suspense. Something like they say, fuck, I need to sit here for 2 hours and listen to when he comes to that hook, when he reveals what this is about. Like, if you start, you say, what does Donald Trump have to do with a pink elephant?
That's a great thing. Yeah, we'll be wondering,
And
what is that in common?
yeah, what do they have in common?
What do they have in common?
Or yeah,
Other things you can.
or maybe ask them a question. Have you ever thought about why this and that? And then they start wondering. Say, yeah, actually, that's interesting.
Question is another great way, because we can be looking at the phone and then we have to be activated. We have to think. What's happening? Maybe raise the hand, depending a little bit. Are they all in ties and then almost joking because it's so tight? Maybe that's not the environment to do it. But question is a great way to get started. And you can use these techniques all along your talk, not just in the beginning. But of course, the beginning is incredibly important. So, question, a hook. I've shared a hook here today, which is when you go home and watch a TED Talk, you will see the 5S system and that it works. So that's kind of a hook. What could be other ways to have a great start?
Like you did yourself, start with a personal story.
Yeah.
That's very strong.
Yeah, start with a story.
But you're still keeping us on the hook. You didn't say the end of the story.
I didn't.
What's happening with the girlfriend?
Oh, I found another one. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, that's a good point actually. But yeah, that's the thing, you know, when life moves on and you figure out. Yeah. So yeah, okay. It's in rhetoric. We have to be very fancy and snobbish all this. It's called in medias res. Start in the middle of a story, right? Story. Our brain loves a story. I know people here, we all engineers, most of us live here. We all, just give me the facts. Facts don't sell. Facts don't create pictures. Remember that in the beginning? This is what you gotta create. These are things that work. So story, we all love that. So think about how you can get them captivated, interested. So like when I went to Singapore during my PhD, and I saw 2/3 spending the majority of time checking the emails in Singapore, where I thought, why didn't you just stay at home and check it? That would have been more efficient, right? But this is the sad fact of most conferences. A lot of people do that. So start. After that, you come to struggle.
Can I just add?
You can add.
I also use a provocation or as proposal.
Proposal, what could that be?
That will be at the end of this training session. You will know how exactly we do directional drilling. Obviously, I look at my audience and I know that these guys are very technical. They are dying to know how we're doing directional drilling. And I will let them know, or you'll know how we do directional drilling and why this is so important exactly for you guys sitting here to know this. And then they can't wait.
You give a value-based promise.
Yeah.
And then of course they can choose to believe you or not, but most likely they'll believe you because, because you're there for a reason to speak. So you say, that's way better than giving the agenda. What would you rather hear? I'm going to talk about this, or you will learn this, be able to do this. I would rather know what I'll be able to do after a talk, rather than knowing this is what you're going to be talking about, right? So provide some value or provocation. So that's also a great way to get started, right? Good. Those are ways. So before you come to your solution, you have to go in and sell the struggle. You have to convince the customer or whoever you're talking to that they have a problem. Of course, you have to do it in a smart way, right? So it's a sympathetic way. So different ways you could do it. I'm just going to share a couple of examples. I've developed the 5F systems. So you could have a first time. First time you did something, you're probably not very good at it, would be interesting to hear for people. Oh, this was the first time I was on stage. This was the first time we went out and drilled. I've never done that before in this sort of environment or whatever it is. This was my first time I went to a job interview or whatever, blah, blah, blah. First times are great. We love it. It brings the audience, they see you for where you were, all right? You kind of take them on the journey. You were here someplace when you started, and now you're another place, and you bring them on that journey. First times, failures. There's a cost to the failure. So share some failure stories. Besides that, there's value in a failure, there's also connection. We connect through failures. Those sort of things. If I came up here and said, yeah, first time I spoke, I was in front of 1,000 people, everybody clapped, they got up and cheered, and they were lined up to buy things. Is there a lot of connection? Probably not. Maybe there's more connection if I shared, oh, I was so afraid, and I stumbled across my words, and I didn't know what to do, and blah, 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 all these sort of things. That could create a little bit more. So failures are a great way. You can have fuck-ups if you really do bad. I had one, with Fernando and the dancing thing. So, and what else do I have? Let me see. Yeah, fear. Fear is a good one. Talk to the fear. What are people afraid of? Fear. Could you see yourself sharing any of these things with the topics you typically talk about? Anybody can, relate, give me a hand up if you see, okay, I can share the first time I did that, yeah, here. This is valuable. When I was a PhD to. Nobody shared these in scientific articles, failures, very rarely. They all just share wins. But there's a lot of value in it, so a lot of researchers, they make the same mistakes all over the world, and they're never published. That's a pity, right? Don't be that. Do it for your audience and share some of these. So after you struggle, you can then share a story. Stories can be put in many places in your presentation, but a good time is typically after these things. So you have then a story, a personal story, something that makes you relatable, understandable, and then you want to create some pictures. Oh, wow, I could see myself doing that. Kind of like when I heard there in Korea at the speaking event, oh, I could see myself, I could be on stage. Yeah, maybe not tomorrow, but in a few years. These are sort of things. Provide the story. And there's a framework to it. Unfortunately, we can't go through it, all of it, but this could be like a 3-day seminar just on storytelling. But what you want to be doing when you're sharing your story, go with this framework. You've kind of been given it. You were at a place before, something happened, you were on a journey, and you got transformed. This is the very, very short version of a story. A lot of interesting research done on this right now because we can start measuring the brain. What we know from the science is that storytelling is the best tool to provide information. And a lot of people, especially in science, they think stories is the content. That it has to be, oh, I was out that day and it was shining and the sun was. It's the structure. There's a structure to a story. Starting with a struggle, how you got over the struggle, and then what happened. That's basically a story, right? And the starting point is you struggled, and then the opposite happened. Could I ruin every movie for you for the rest of your life, but you get to know a story format? Would that be okay for you? If you see a story or a movie, right, let's say, whatever happens in the beginning, the opposite will happen in the end. If you take a movie like Jurassic Park, the guy doesn't like kids. I remember I saw that when I was probably a teenager. So the guy doesn't like the kids, but in the end he loves kids, right? So the movie is not about dinosaurs. It's about him changing. So this is what happens. So whenever you watch a movie from now on, 99% of the time, or maybe 100, this is the opposite is going to happen. After 5 minutes, you'll know. 5, 10 minutes, this is going to happen. Maybe even 15 seconds, right? Story. So you kind of gone through all of that, and then, only then, you're ready to sell your solution. You have to be like on the edge of the seat. Oh, I'm interested. I want to hear. How do you do it? If you just give the solution, they're not going to be, most likely not going to be interested. So then, this is the, let me just write, third, second, first, and fourth solution. You know this. You know how to present solutions. You're academics. You've studied. You know how to structure things, provide them. So you probably don't need too much information on this, but make it simple. What should they do, the exact steps. That creates power rather than just, hey, be happy. All right, how do I be happy? Give them some tangible things. It could be write down in your journal 3 things that make you happy every night, or for your client, it will be something else they could start doing. Look into whatever parameters that could change the drilling. So you have a solution, and then you have sell. You want to close your talk. A great way to close your talk is to remind them of the pain they have. They're struggling with something, and then there's a promise you're giving them. So it could be, oh, if you continue to have pain, do nothing, all right, that's your choice, but if you could also do this. If you do this, these things will happen for you. Basically, motivation is just 2 things. Pain away from something, pleasure towards something. That's all motivation is. And then there can be all sorts of theories and so forth. But provide that. The pain, you gotta immerse them in that pain. And that's the sell, and then hopefully you can have a call to action, CTA. Call to action, what should they do? Without the change, they're not gonna do anything. So help them, what could be a first thing they could do? For you, it could be, maybe tomorrow, take a TED Talk that got millions of views within a topic you love, so you're not feeling you're wasting your time in that way, and just check. how much does it follow the 5S? That could be a pretty simple task, and you would learn something, have a good time, and maybe become a better speaker at the same time. So this is essentially the formula for every great presentation. Now, when you're talking, this could be the framework for your entire talk, but it could also be, let's say you have 3 things you talk about, 3 themes. Then you can do this one time, and then you do it again on the new theme, and then again. So you would do it 3 times, and then you have a big sell in the end, and a big start for the entire thing. So does it make sense? You kind of reuse it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Does, okay. So now I've made a little exercise. We're gonna have fun, and you'll find again another person you don't know, so you partner up with new people. And the idea is just to have fun basically, but also learn. And you'll join as a team, and you play that you invented a product. It can be any kind of product. You can make the craziest product, you can make wonder products, magic products, and then using the 5S system. And you pick the communication situation. So you have to think about who is it for? Is it for an investor? Is it for a potential customer? Whatever it is. So you figure out what it is. So now I'm going to give you the paper. Then please have a look at it and find a new person. And then we'll do presentations according to. So we can do a few presentations. All right? And I know it's a little time, but you'll do it anyway because you're good. You can do it. All right? So, find a new partner in the